You probably thought this was going to be a video about how I upgraded the dust collection in my workshop. Well, it's actually a video about being resourceful, as well as being a video about dust collection. Let me explain. What I thought would be a straightforward build really turned out to be a lot of troubleshooting and problem solving. So I thought, why not make a video to help someone else avoid a few struggles? I'm not guaranteeing that you won't have to be a little resourceful in your own build. At least you can benefit from some of my mistakes to maybe take a little pain out of the build. So let's get started. For ease, I mentally broke this project into 3 big chunks. First, prep the wall to hang the dust collector. Next, make a mounting system to hang the motor, filter, and 2-stage separator on the wall. And third, to connect everything together, including running ductwork and inlets at each of my tool areas. In the first part of this video, you actually saw me prep the wall, which is hanging the 1/2-inch birch plywood that I used. So the first box is checked. In this section, which I'll call the second chunk, I'm building the mounting platforms for the dust collector motor, as well as the Dust Deputy Cyclone unit, which will separate out most of the chips. After cutting out the opening for the inlet on the bottom of the motor, I used the spindle sander to make the hole just a little bigger for a perfect fit. Following this, I'll cut out an insert from 3/4 inch MDF to use to hold the dust collector in place, as well as solidify the mounting of the 5-gallon bucket that replaces the old dust bag. Again, the sander helps to shape this for a nice tight fit. Right in here. I used 3/4 inch MDF for the insert and 3/4 inch plywood for the platform, but you can use whatever 3/4 inch material you have extra around the shop for either one of these. After fastening this in place, I cut the lid of the bucket out to allow whatever wood shavings that get past the Dust Deputy to fall into the bucket. Be sure to watch to the end to see how much gets into the bucket after separation. I also took this over to the spindle sander to create an angle on the opening to allow dust to drop through it just a little easier. To finish out the platform, I added 2x4s underneath the platform to be able to mount the plywood to the wall. About those mistakes that I mentioned earlier, I think the biggest one was my initial design to mount the motor blower assembly to the platform. I started out by laying 2x4s on their side, which were very carefully cut to a 22.5-degree angle. But the curve of the motor made it just too difficult to line up the screw holes while also getting the ends of the boards, the 2x4s, to sit flush with the platform, and also have this whole assembly sit level on the platform. So in an aha moment, I thought, why not just flip the 2x4s on end and make 4 vertical stands? So that's what I did. And I wish I had thought of that a little sooner, as I really struggled with this part of the assembly. Next, I cut more 2x4s at an angle to provide the bottom support for the platform. I had to think ahead a little bit at the angle and length of these so the bracket wouldn't get in the way of the inlet for the Cyclone, which will be immediately below the platform. After finishing the platform, I mounted the bucket lid to the underside using silicone adhesive and screws to firmly fasten the two together. I did a test fit of the bucket and then took it off to mount the platform to the wall. For the height of this, I measured the height of the 55-gallon drum and Cyclone unit together, and then I added 14 inches to allow for insertion of a small section of flexible duct. This makes removing the lid from the drum easier when it is time to empty it. Before I put the new air filter on top of the unit, I sealed the inside of the mounting plate with some more silicone adhesive to make the connection around the platform as airtight as possible. And the filter that I'm using was ordered from Wen Environmental. It's a MERV 10 filter, which means it will capture 50% of particles down to 1 micron and about 80% of particles to 3 microns. It's definitely an improvement from the clogged dust bag that I was using before. With the first platform done, I next built a smaller platform to hold the Cyclone unit. For this, I used a 3/4 inch piece of scrap plywood that I cut down to size. In the base of the platform, I installed this flange, which is actually a toilet flange, I believe, and I used 2 of these, one on the base of the platform and one on the lid of the 55-gallon drum, choosing a size to fit the 5-inch flex hose that I used to connect the two. On the platform, I wanted the flange to sit flush with the surface, so I routed in a recess using a straight cutting bit on my router, carefully doing this by hand. I attached the flange using 1/4-inch bolts and then sealed it with silicone adhesive. I finished up this platform by adding supports on the sides and back, which are glued and brad nailed into place. I then mounted this to the wall just below the intake of the motor assembly, spacing it just high enough to mount the Cyclone directly to the bottom of the air intake. One of the things I appreciate about the Dust Deputy Cyclone is that Oneida ships these with a gasket that helps create a tight air seal. I did have to order the Cyclone to motor adapter as well as a Cyclone to 4-inch PVC hose adapter from Oneida's website, but shipping only took a few days, so I had these ready to go before I got to this point in the build. And here you see me cutting out the opening of the lid for the bottom flange. I mounted this the same way that I mounted the top flange, except for routing out a recess in the lid, which would be impossible to do on the plastic lid, and not at all necessary. With the flex hose in place, the now 2-stage dust collector is ready for work. I just needed to run PVC pipe to all the tool locations, and for this I used 4-inch sewer drain pipe, which is a little thinner walled than regular 4-inch PVC. This was less expensive and plenty strong for the vacuum created by the 1.5 horsepower motor. For optimal airflow, I used 45-degree connectors instead of T connectors or 90-degree elbows. The PVC pipes are secured to the wall with 4-inch hangers that I cut down to size beforehand. With everything plumb and level, I installed these aluminum blast gates near the openings. With that, the installation is complete. Let's check out the results. For machines, I'm using the 6-inch Delta Shopmaster joiner, and for planing, I'm using this DeWalt DW735 planer. Planing down this cherry, walnut, and maple, there are 6 boards in total there, plus a few pieces of 2x4 and 2x6 lumber. You know, what I really like about this system is that it does a great job of collecting dust that normally would go into the bag. It would have gone into the bag right here. And for comparison, you can see what fell into the collector bin, and this used to be all the chips before. So just got this little bit of powder right here. In fact, I can fit all of that right in the palm of my hand. So with all that said, I'm pretty happy with how this turned out. I actually like how it mounts in the wall, and I like the fact that I've got some extra French cleat wall storage here on this wall and on the wall behind me to really optimize the storage here in my shop. And that's going to do it for this video. I just want to thank you guys for watching. Hey, if you found it helpful, please hit the like button and consider becoming a subscriber to this channel for more videos just like this. Thanks again for watching. We'll catch you in the next one. And this dust bag doesn't hold the dust out very well, as you'd see.